In a small town of Umoko, there was a woman called Mama Nkechi. She was famous for her delicious food. Everyone who ate her food always asked for more. People from far and near came to buy her food, and they all said Mama Nkechi's food is the sweetest in the whole village. But Mama Nkechi had a big secret, a very dark and scary secret. She did not cook like other women. She did not just use ordinary water to cook her food. No, Mama Nkechi used water from dead bodies. Every night when the village was quiet and everyone was asleep, Mama Nkechi would sneak into the back of the village hospital. Behind the hospital, there was a place where dead bodies were washed before burial. The people who worked there always poured the water on the ground after washing the bodies. Mama Nkechi would take a small calabash and secretly collect the water. Then she would rush back home before anyone could see her. The next morning, she woke up early, light her fire and start cooking. She made jollof rice, egusi soup, pepper soup, fried plantain. The smell of her food filled the air, and people would come running with their money ready to buy and eat. "Ah, Mama Nkechi, your food is so sweet," they would say. She would just smile and reply, "It is the hand of God that makes my food sweet." But nobody knew the truth. Nobody knew that the secret of her delicious food was the water from dead bodies. One day, a young boy called Chinedu started to suspect something strange. Chinedu's father always brought food from Mama Nkechi's shop, and he would bring some home for the family. But every time Chinedu ate Mama Nkechi's food, he had bad dreams. In his dream, he saw shadows moving in the dark. He heard strange whispers calling his name. Sometimes he even saw ghosts crying and asking for help. Chinedu told his mother, "Mama, I don't want to eat Mama Nkechi's food again." "Why, my son?" his mother asked. "I always have scary dreams after eating her food," Chinedu said. His mother laughed. "It is just your mind, my son. Mama Nkechi is a good woman. Everyone eats her food," but Chinedu was not sure. Something was not right. He decided to find out the truth. One night, when everyone was asleep, Chinedu sneaked out of the house. He hid behind a tree near Mama Nkechi's house and waited. After some time, he saw her coming out, holding a small calabash. She was walking very fast, looking left and right to make sure no one was watching. Chinedu followed her quietly, his heart beating fast. Where was she going to, and what was she doing? He had to find out. But Chinedu did not go alone. He went with his sister Ada. As Chinedu and Ada pressed themselves against the tree, their hearts pounding, Mama Nkechi stood still for a moment, listening carefully. The night was silent, except for the distant sound of cricket. "I know someone is here," Mama Nkechi said, her voice low and sharp. Chinedu and Ada didn't move. They barely even breathed. After a few seconds, Mama Nkechi shook her head and muttered, "Maybe it was a rat." Then she hurried away with her calabash of dead body water. As soon as she was gone, Ada whispered, "That was close." Chinedu let out a deep breath. "We need to stop her, but how?" "We need proof," Ada said. "If we tell people without proof, they won't believe us." Chinedu thought for a moment. Then he had an idea. "What if we take the calabash from her house? If people see what's inside, they will know the truth." Ada nodded. "Yes, but we have to be very careful." The next day, Chinedu and Ada waited until Mama Nkechi went to market. Then they sneaked into the back of her house. The door to her kitchen was slightly open. They peeped inside and saw a big pot bubbling on the fire. The sweet smell of food filled the air. Ada pointed to a small wooden shelf. "Look, the calabash." Chinedu tiptoed inside and grabbed it. He slowly lifted the cover and almost dropped it in shock. Inside, the water was dark and thick, with a tiny pieces of hair floating on it. It smelled rotten. Chinedu covered his nose. "This is disgusting. We have to show this to the chief," Ada whispered. Just as they turned to leave, they heard footsteps coming outside. Mama Nkechi was back. "Oh no," Chinedu whispered. "What do we do?" Ada looked around quickly. Then she grabbed Chinedu's hand and pulled him towards a large clay pot in the corner. "Hide inside," she whispered. They climbed in and covered themselves. Just as Mama Nkechi entered the kitchen, she stopped and looked around, her eyes narrowing. Something didn't feel right. Then she gasped. The calabash was missing. "Who took my calabash?" she screamed. Chinedu and Ada held their breath. If she found them, they were in big trouble. Mama Nkechi grabbed a long wooden spoon and started looking around. "I know someone was here," she muttered, "and I will find the person. And when I find the person, they will regret it." She took slow, careful steps towards the clay pot where Chinedu and Ada were hiding. Mama Nkechi's footsteps grew closer. Chinedu and Ada squeezed their eyes shut, holding their breath. If she opened the clay pot, they were finished. She stopped right in front of them. Tap, tap, tap. She knocked on the side of the pot with her wooden spoon. Chinedu's heart pounded so hard he thought she could hear it. Then Mama Nkechi muttered, "Maybe it's a rat that entered my kitchen." She turned away and started searching in other corners. Ada peeked through a small hole in the pot and saw Mama Nkechi picking up a sharp knife from the table. "If I catch the person who took my calabash, they will not see tomorrow," she hissed. Chinedu shivered. They had to escape fast. Ada pointed to a small back door leading outside. She whispered, "When I count 1 to 3, we run." Chinedu nodded. 1, 2, 3, go! They jumped out of the clay pot and ran towards the door, but the pot tipped over and crashed to the ground. Mama Nkechi spun around. "Hey, who is that?" She saw Chinedu and Ada dashing out of the door, the calabash in Chinedu's hand. "Come back here, you thieves!" she screamed, grabbing a big peso and chasing after them. Chinedu and Ada ran as fast as their leg could carry them. They dashed through the village path, jumping over stones and dodging trees. Mama Nkechi was right behind them, running like a wild cat. "Stop or I will deal with you," she shouted. But Chinedu and Ada didn't stop. They knew they had to reach the village square, where many people would be gathered. The sound of their footsteps were getting closer. She was catching up. Then Chinedu saw something ahead. The village chief's palace. The chief and his elders were sitting outside talking. "Run to the chief," Chinedu shouted. With one final push, they burst into the palace compound, panting heavily. The chief, a tall man with a long white beard, stood looking surprised. "What is happening here?" Before Chinedu could speak, Mama Nkechi ran in after them. Her face was dark with anger. She was still holding the peso. "Thieves! They stole from me," she shouted. The villagers gathered around, watching the scene with curiosity. Ada pointed at Mama Nkechi. "She is a rich thief. She has been cooking with water from dead bodies." Gasps filled the air. "What?" Mama Nkechi's eyes widened. "That's a lie." Chinedu held up the calabash. "We took this from our kitchen. Look inside and see for yourself." The chief guards collected the calabash and carefully opened it. The moment they did, a horrible smell filled the air. People covered their nose. Some even ran away. The chief peered inside and saw the dark, dirty water with tiny hair floating in it. His face twisted in disgust. "Mama Nkechi," the chief thundered. "What is this?" Mama Nkechi fell on her knees, shaking. "I can explain." The villagers started murmuring. "So this is why your food is so sweet. We have been eating food cooked with dead body water." Someone shouted, "She must be punished." "Yes." The chief stood up. His face was filled of anger. "Take her away. We can decide her punishment in the village square." The guards grabbed Mama Nkechi. She screamed and kicked, but they didn't let her go. As they dragged her away, Chinedu and Ada, out of sign of relief, they had done it. They had stopped Mama Nkechi's wickedness. But deep inside, Chinedu wondered, was this the end? Or was there more to the story? That evening, the whole villagers gathered at the square market. The news of Mama Nkechi's secret had spread like wildfire. People whispered among themselves, shaking their heads in shock and disgust. The village chief sat on his high wooden chair, his face serious. The elders sat beside him, their eyes fixed on Mama Nkechi, who knelt in the middle of the square with her hands tied. "Mama Nkechi," the chief priest said, his deep voice echoing through the square, "you have been cooking with dead body water, feeding the people of Umoko with food touched by the spirit. Do you have anything to say before we decide your punishment?" Mama Nkechi lifted her head slowly. Her eyes were red, her face covered in sweat. She looked around at the angry villagers. Then, to everyone's surprises, she laughed, a deep, airy laugh that sent shivers down the spine of everyone present. "You all think you can stop me," she said, her voice cold. "You think this is the end?" The crowd gasped. Chinedu grabbed Ada's hand. "Why is she laughing?" he whispered. Ada shook her head. "I don't know, but something is not right." The chief frowned. "What do you mean, Mama Nkechi?" Mama Nkechi smiled, showing her yellow teeth. "You fools! Do you think I was cooking with dead body water just for fun? Do you think I did it because I wanted my food to taste sweet?" The villagers murmured, confused. Mama Nkechi's smile grew wider. "No, my people, I was not cooking for you. I was cooking for them." "Who?" the chief asked, his voice sharp. Mama Nkechi's eyes darkened. "The spirit, the one who drink the water of the dead. They are the ones I serve. They are the ones I feed." A strong wind blew through the village square, making the fire from the torches flicker wildly. The villagers stepped aback, fear creeping into their heart. Then Mama Nkechi spoke again, her voice lower that time. And now they are coming. Suddenly, a loud whispering filled the air, like 100 voices speaking at once. The wind grew stronger. The fire from the torches went out. Darkness fell. People screamed. Ada held Chinedu's hand tightly. What is happening? From the shadows they appeared. Tall, thin figures with glowing white eyes. Their bodies were covered in tattered clothes, their feet floating above the ground. Their hands were long and bony, reaching out like claws. The spirit of the dead has come, and they are very hungry. The village square erupted in chaos. People screamed and ran in all directions as the spirit moved closer, their glowing white eyes scanning the crowd. The air turned cold, and a strange rotten smell filled the place. Chinedu and Ada held onto each other, their heart pounding. Chinedu, what do we do? Ada whispered, fear in her voice. Chinedu didn't know. He had never seen spirit before, but one thing was clear. Mama Nkechi had summoned them. The chief priest stood his ground, raising his staff. Spirit of the dead, why have you come? He demanded, his voice strong, though his hands trembled slightly. One of the spirits floated forward. His voice was deep and hollow, like wind passing through an empty cave. We were called, it said. We were fed, now we have to come and collect. Mama Nkechi, still kneeling with her hands tied, threw her head back and laughed again. You see? You thought you could stop me, but they are my masters, and they will not let me be punished. The villagers gasped. The chief frowned. What do you mean collect? The spirit stretched its long bony hand towards the crowd. For years we have tasted the food of this woman. Our hunger has been kept on bay. But now you have stopped her. You have taken away our food, so we must eat something else. A deep silence fell over the village. Then another spirit spoke. We will take her and one more. The crowd gasped. Mama Nkechi's smile vanished. What? No, you promised me safety. The spirit turned to her. We made no promise. You have served us, yes, but now your time is up. Mama Nkechi screamed. No, 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 take someone else. Take the chief. Take these children who exposed me, not me. Chinedu's blood ran cold. Ada, we need to run. But before they could move, the spirit stretched their long hands and fingers towards Mama Nkechi. A strong wind blew the square, and suddenly she had vanished. She was gone. The villagers gasped in horror. Where did she go? Someone whispered. But the first spirit turned his glowing eyes back to the crowd. One more, he said. Chinedu felt his legs shake. Who would they take? The chief quickly stepped forward. No more. You will take no one else from this village. The spirit tilted his head. Then return what was taken from us. Chinedu and Ada exchanged glances. What do they mean? Ada whispered. The chief's face darkened. He knew, but he was afraid to say it. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, he said, the calabash. Chinedu's heart skipped a beat. The calabash of dead body water. Was that the key to sending the spirit away? The village square was once silent again. The spirit floated in the air, their glowing eyes fixed on the chief. The villagers held their breath, afraid to move. Chinedu's hand tightened around the calabash. Was this the only way to stop them? The chief took a deep breath and turned to Chinedu. My son, give me the calabash. Chinedu hesitated. The dark liquid inside it smelled foul. Tiny piece of hair floated on the surface. The same water that had made Mama Nkechi's food sweet. The same water that had kept the spirit satisfied for years. Would giving it back to them make them leave? Or would it make things worse? Ada tugged on his arm. Chinedu, what if they don't go? What if they come back for more? Chinedu swallowed hard. He looked up at the spirit, then at the chief. Finally, he stepped forward and handed over the calabash. The chief held it up. Spirit of the dead, take back what is yours, but leave this village in peace. The spirits stretched their long, bony fingers towards the calabash. The villagers stepped back as a strong wind howled through the square. The dark liquid inside the calabash began to rise. It twisted and turned in the air like a snake swirling around the spirit. Then one by one, the spirit disappeared. Their whispers faded. Their glowing eyes blinked out. The wind stopped, and just like that, they were gone. The villagers looked around, shocked. The spirit had truly left. The chief sighed in relief. it is over. The people began to cheer. Women hugged their children. Men patted Chinedu and Ada on their back. You two saved us, one man said. But Ada wasn't smiling. She looked at the calabash still in the chief's hand. The dark liquid was gone, but something about the calabash still felt wrong. She whispered to Chinedu, "Do you think this is really over?" Chinedu didn't know, but deep inside, he had a feeling this was not the end. Somewhere in the shadow of the night, a soft whisper echoed, a whisper only Chinedu could hear. "We will return when we are hungry again." That night, the villagers celebrated. The chief ordered a great feast in honor of Chinedu and Ada. People danced, sang, and laughed, happy that the spirits were gone. But Chinedu couldn't enjoy the celebration. He kept hearing that whisper in his head, "We will return when we are hungry again." What did it mean? Would the spirit truly come back? Ada noticed the worried face. She nudged him. "Chinedu, what is wrong?" He hesitated, then whispered, "I think the spirits are not really gone." Ada frowned, "But we gave them back their water. They should leave us alone." Chinedu shook his head. What if they want more? What if Mama Nkechi wasn't the only one feeding them? Ada's eyes widened. "You mean someone somewhere else in the village is helping them?" Before Chinedu could answer, an old woman walked past them, carrying a small bowl covered with a cloth. It was Iya Idoyin, the oldest woman in the village. She was bent over with age, her hands wrinkled like old leather. She never spoke much, and the people rarely saw her during the day. Something about the way she clawed the bowl made Chinedu's stomach turn. "Iya Idoyin," Ada whispered. "Where is she going?" Chinedu's eyes followed the old woman as she slipped away from the feast, moving towards the dark forest path. His heart skipped a beat. Was she carrying food for someone or something? "We have to follow her," Chinedu said. Ada grabbed his hand. "Are you sure?" Chinedu nodded. "I need to know if this is really over." Quietly, they sneaked away from the celebration and followed Iya Idoyin into the darkness. The forest was silent, except for the sound of their footsteps on dry leaves. Iya Idoyin moved surprisingly fast for someone so old. She walked deeper and deeper into the forest until she reached a small clearing. Then she stopped. Chinedu and Ada hid behind a large tree and watched as Iya Idoyin knelt on the ground and placed the bowl in front of her. Then, in a voice that sent chills down their spine, she whispered, "They think you are gone, but I know the truth. You are still hungry. Come, my masters, eat." Chinedu gasped. Ada covered her mouth to stop herself from screaming. A cold wind blew through the trees. The leaves rustled, and then they saw it. The air in front of Iya Idoyin shimmered. Shadows began to form. Glowing white eyes appeared. The spirits were still here. Chinedu's blood ran cold. They had never left. Chinedu and Ada froze behind the tree, their hearts pounding. The spirits were still here. Their glowing white eyes flickered in the darkness as they surrounded Iya Idoyin. The old woman bowed her head low. "I have brought you food," she whispered. With trembling hands, she lifted the cloth covering the wooden bowl. Inside was a thick dark liquid, just like the dead body from Mama Nkechi. Chinedu felt sick, so Iya Idoyin was also feeding the spirit. One of the spirits stretched out its long bony hands and dipped it inside the bowl. It lifted the dark liquid to its lips and drank. A deep sigh filled the air. "Yes!" the spirit whispered. "This will do for now." Another spirit turned its glowing eyes towards Iya Idoyin. "But this time is almost over. Old one, your time is going very soon." Iya Idoyin lowered her head. "I know, I have served you for so many years, but soon I'll be too weak to gather what you need." Chinedu and Ada exchanged frightened glances. Did this mean there were more people helping the spirit? Another spirit spoke, his voice hollow and cold. "Find another to take your place, or we'll take you." Iya Idoyin's hand shook. "Yes, my master, I will find someone else." Then, to Chinedu's horror, Iya Idoyin slowly turned her head and looked directly at their hiding place. Ada grabbed Chinedu's arm. "She sees us," she whispered. Iya Idoyin's face twisted with a strange smile. "Ah," she murmured, "I think I have found someone." The spirits all turned. Their glowing eyes looked onto the tree where Chinedu and Ada were hiding. A gust of air and wind blew, shaking the trees. Then the shadows stretched towards them. Then Iya Idoyin raised her hand and pointed straight at Chinedu. "Him!" she said. Chinedu's breath caught in his throat. The spirit moved. Chinedu's body froze as the spirit glittered towards him. their long bony fingers reaching out, their glowing white eyes locked onto him like a hunter spotted its prey. Ada grabbed his hand. "Run!" she shouted. Without thinking, they turned and dashed through the dark forest. Branches scratched their faces and dry leaves crunched beneath their feet. The cold wind howled behind them. The spirits were chasing them. Chinedu's heart pounded. He could hear eerie whispers growing louder. "Come back, you belong to us now. You must serve." Ada's grip tightened around his wrist. "Chinedu, we can't outrun them. We need to hide." They spotted a large fallen trunk and quickly ducked behind it, holding their breath. They crouched low, peeking through the gaps. The spirit floated past them, their ghostly forms flickered in the moonlight. Iyadoyin limped behind them, whispering, "Find them, my masters. He is the one. He will take my place." Chinedu's stomach twisted. What does she mean by that? Ada leaned closer. "Chinedu, why do they want you? What did you do?" "I don't know," he whispered back, his body shaking. "I only stopped Mama Nkechi. That's all." Ada bit her lip. What if there is the reason? What if the spirits are angry because you ruined their food supply? Chinedu felt cold all over him. Did the spirit want revenge? Just then, a voice spoke right above them. "You cannot hide." Chinedu and Ada looked up, and they gasped. One of the spirits were floating above the tree trunk, staring down at them. "Run!" Chinedu shouted, grabbing Ada's hand again. They bolted from their hiding place, their legs burning with speed. But no matter how fast they ran, the spirits moved faster. The whispers grew louder, the air grew colder, the trees seemed to twist and bend as if the whole forest was alive. Then Chinedu tipped. He fell hard on the ground, hitting his knees. Ada stopped and turned, panic on her face. Chinedu, before he could get up, Iyadoyin appeared before him. She smiled, her wrinkled face twisted in the dim light. "Don't fight it, my child," she whispered. "The spirit has chosen you. You will take my place, and they will leave the village in peace." Chinedu's eyes widened in horror. "No, I don't want to serve them." The spirits surrounded him, their hands reaching closer, their whispers coiling around his ear like smoke. "You are ours now." Ada grabbed a thick branch from the ground. "Leave him alone," she screamed and swung at Iyadoyin. Crack! The branch hit the old woman's back. She let out a sharp cry and fell forward. The spirits hissed, their glowing eyes flickering. Chinedu took the chance. He scrambled to his feet and grabbed Ada's hand. They ran. Ahead, they saw a faint light. It was a village. If they could just make it there, they might be saved. The whispers turned into screams. The spirit chased after them, flying faster. The village entrance was just ahead. 5 steps, 4 steps, 3. Suddenly, a cold hand grabbed Chinedu's shoulder. A chill ran down his spine. "You cannot escape." Chinedu's scream echoed into the night. Chinedu's body froze. A sharp coldness spread from his shoulder down to his chest, like eyes crawling under his skin. His breath came out of short gaps. The spirit's bony fingers tightened. Ada turned, eyes wide with terror. "Chinedu," she screamed. The spirit pulled him back. The village entrance was right here. Just a few steps, but now Chinedu felt as if invisible chains were wrapped around him, dragging him into the darkness. His legs felt weak. His arms trembled. His vision blurred. He could hear the whispers, louder now, drilling into his mind. "You are ours. You will serve us. You will never leave." He saw flashes in his head, visions of dark forests, endless night, shadows moving in circles. He saw himself, old, bent like Iyadoyin, carrying bowls of dark liquids, whispering to the village, feeding them forever. No, 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 this can't be my future. Somewhere through the fog in his mind, he heard Ada's voice, "Chinedu, fight it." Then wham! And that threw something in the spirit's head. A small calabash, it shattered on impact, and the spirit let out a horrible screech. Chinedu snapped back to reality. The coldness broke. The invisible chain shattered. He fell forward, landing hard on his hand and knees. The spirit reeled back. His white eyes flickered wildly. "Chinedu, now run!" Ada screamed with the last breath of his strength. Chinedu pushed himself up and ran. They burst into the village. The moment their feet touched the village ground, the spirit stopped. A loud deafening wail filled the air. The spirit's glowing eyes dimmed. Their bodies faded. The chief and the villagers, who had been sleeping, rushed outside with torches. "What is happening?" the chief demanded. Chinedu and Ada collapsed on the ground, gasping for breath. The spirit Ada pointed and painted. They tried to take Chinedu. The chief's face darkened. He turned to the forest. The spirits were still here, but they could not pass the village boundary. Iyadoyin stood behind them, her face twisted in anger. "You fools! You ruined everything!" she screeched. The villagers gasped. "Iyadoyin, you were helping the spirit?" She pointed the trembling fingers at Chinedu. "It was meant to take my place. Now they will punish me instead." The spirit turned to her. Their whispers grew sharp, angry. Iyadoyin's eyes widened in shock. "No, please, give me more time." But the spirits were done with her. With a final ear-splitting shriek, they surrounded her. The villagers watched in horror as she vanished into darkness. Then, just like that, the spirit disappeared. The wind fell down. The trees stood still. The air was quiet once more. Chinedu and Ada sat in the dirt, still shaking. The chief helped them up. "It is over," he said. The villagers murmured, still in shock. But deep inside, Chinedu wasn't sure. As he stared at the dark forest, a single whisper echoed in his mind. "For now," but hunger always returned. Chinedu shivered. Was it truly over? Or was this just the beginning? That night, the villagers sat awake. No one dared to sleep after what had happened. Mothers held their children close, and the elders sat in circles whispering prayers. Chinedu and Ada were given warm clothes and bowls of pepper soup, but they couldn't eat. The taste of fear was still fresh in their mouths. The chief sat beside them, his face serious. "You two have done a great thing tonight," he said. "You exposed Mama Nkechi, and now Iyadoyin had faced her punishment. The spirits are gone." Chinedu swallowed hard. But what if? What if they come back? The chief sighed. "Spirits are like wind, my son. They move, they disappear, but sometimes they return." Ada shivered. "So what do we do?" The chief looked at the dark forest, his eyes deep in thought. "Tomorrow, we will gather the elders. We must cleanse the village properly. We must make sure that no one is feeding them." Chinedu nodded, but deep inside, he still felt unease. Something was not right. The spirit had only taken Iyadoyin, but what if she wasn't the only servant? The next morning, the sun rose, casting a golden glow over the village. The air felt lighter, as if the night horror had been swept away. The chief called a meeting at the village square. "Today, we purify our home," he announced. The elders brought us charms, herbs, and sacred chalks. Women sprinkled water at their doorsteps. Men chanted prayers at the village boundaries. But as the cleansing began, something strange happened. A loud cry came from far end of the village. A young girl named Ozioma ran into the square, tears streaming down her face. "Mama, Mama won't wake up," she sobbed. The villagers rushed to her house. Inside, Ozioma's mother lay on the mat, cold and lifeless. Her eyes were wide open, her mouth frozen in silent scream. On the floor beside her was a small wooden bowl, and inside it was the same dark liquid. Chinedu and Ada stepped back, their blood turning to ice. Ada clutched Chinedu's arm. "Chinedu, what does this mean?" Chinedu swallowed. He didn't need to say it. The spirits were not gone. Someone else has been feeding them, and now they are hungry again. A heavy silence fell over the room. The villagers stared at the wooden bowl, the dark liquid glistening in the morning light. The chief stepped forward slowly. He knelt beside Ozioma's mother, pressing two fingers to her neck. After a long pause, he exhaled deeply and shook his head. "She's gone." Gasps and murmurs spread through the crowd. Fear crept back into their heart. Ada clung to Chinedu. "Chinedu, if the spirit didn't take her, then what did?" Chinedu had no answer. He only knew one thing: the nightmare was not over. The chief turned to the villagers. His voice was firm, but his eyes held worry. "Someone else is serving the spirit. Someone else is still feeding them." The people looked at one another. Suspicion filled the air. If Iyadoyin was gone, then who? Who had placed the bowl? The chief's voice deepened. "We must find out who among us is keeping them alive." That night, the village elders set up a plan. They placed a hidden guard around the village. If anyone tried to take food into the forest, they would be caught. Chinedu and Ada sat outside Ada's hut, watching the night sky. The moon was full, but it felt cold. Ada whispered, "Do you think whoever is feeding them will come out?" Chinedu nodded. "If they don't, the spirit will take someone else." Suddenly, a soft rustling came from the shadow. Chinedu and Ada ducked behind a tree. A figure was moving through the village, carrying a wooden bowl. Chinedu's heart pounded. This was it, the real servant of the spirit. The figure moved carefully, stepping between huts, avoiding the guards. Then, as the moonlight taught them, Chinedu's breath caught on his throat. The person holding the bowl was Ozioma, the little girl who had cried for her mother that morning. Chinedu's mind spun. Why would she be the one? Ada grabbed his hand. Chinedu, we have to follow her. Silently, they crept into the shadow as Ozioma made her way to the forest. She was heading towards the same clearing where Iyadoyin had felt the spirit. Chinedu's chest tightened. If the spirit were still here, what would then do to Ozioma? The moment she stepped into the clearing, a cold wind blew the trees. The shadow shifted, and then they appeared. The spirits, glowing eyes, hollow whispered, long bony fingers. One of them leaned forward, staring at Ozioma. You have come. Ozioma bowed her head. Yes, I have brought you your food. She knelt and placed the bowl beside them. The spirit moved closer. The long fingers dipped into the dark liquid. They drank. A deep sigh filled the air. Yes, one of them whispered. Another spirit turned to Ozioma. You have done well, child. You have taken a place. Chinedu's stomach dropped. Ozioma was the new servant of the spirit. Ada's grip tightened on his arm. Chinedu, we can't let this happen. But before they could move, spirit turned and stared directly at them. There are others watching. Chinedu and Ada froze. Then the spirit rushed towards them. A sharp wind howled. The trees bent. The darkness swallowed them whole. Chinedu screamed, and then everything went blank. In the dark place, Chinedu opened his eyes. Everything was silent. Everywhere was quiet. No wind, no tree, no stars in the sky, just darkness. He turned his head. Ada lay beside him, her eyes wide with fear. She clutched his hand. Chinedu, where are we? Chinedu swallowed hard. He didn't know. The last thing he remembered was the spirit rushing at them. Then nothing. A whisper flowed through the air. You should not have followed us. Chinedu sat up sharply. The spirits were here. Their glowing eyes flickered in the distance, watching. Slowly, they moved forward. Their long fingers stretched out. Ada shivered. What do you want from us? One spirit stepped closer. His voice was cold. You ruined everything. Mama Nkechi served us. Iyadoyin served us. And now a new one had taken her place. Chinedu's fist clenched. Ozioma, she's just a child. You can't make her serve you. The spirit hissed. The air turned freezing. She came to us on her own. She has given herself freely. The hunger must be fed. Chinedu's chest tightened. Ozioma had lost her mother. Did she believe that serving the spirit would protect her? Ada's voice was steady. What if there was another way? The spirit tilted their head. What do you mean? Ada's grip on Chinedu's hand tightened. What if we find a way to stop the hunger? The spirit laughed, a terrible hollow sound. There is only one way, one spirit whispered. A new servant or a sacrifice. Chinedu's blood ran cold. Sacrifice? The spirit floated closer. One of you must stay. Ada gasped. No! Chinedu's heart pounded. They had to find a way to get out of here. But how? The darkness thickened around them. The spirit whispered, their voices coiling through the air like smoke. Choose! Chinedu refused to accept this. There has to be another way. Then he remembered something. The calabash. When Ada threw it at the spirit before it broke, the spirit's grip on him. Maybe they could use it again. Chinedu leaned close to Ada and whispered, we need to find something to break them. Ada nodded, her eyes scanning the darkness. But there was nothing here. Chinedu's mind raced. Think, think. Then a faint glow appeared. In the distance behind the spirit, something was shining. Ada saw it too. What is it, Chinedu? The spirit turned sharply. They had seen it too. For the first time, their whispers sounded afraid. Chinedu's heart leaped with joy and hope. Whatever that light was, it was their way out. Run, he shouted. He grabbed Ada's hand and they sprinted towards the light. The spirit screamed, the darkness shook, and behind them, the spirit came after them. Chinedu and Ada ran. Their glowing light ahead flickered, almost like a small flame in the endless darkness. It was their only hope. Behind them, the spirit shrieked. The air felt heavy, like invisible hands were pulling at their legs, trying to slow them down. You cannot leave, the spirit hissed. Ada gritted her teeth. Chinedu, we have to move faster. Chinedu's leg burned, but he pushed himself forward. They were close. The light grew brighter, warmer. It felt different from everything else in the dark. Then Ada tripped. She fell hard, landing on her hands and knees. Ada, Chinedu shouted and stopped, turning back. The spirit almost was upon her. Without thinking, he lunged forward and grabbed her hand. A spirit reached for them, but as soon as Chinedu and Ada's hand touched, the light flashed. A powerful burst of warmth exploded around them. The spirits screamed in agony, their forms flickering, their glowing eyes dimming, and then everything vanished. Back in the village, Chinedu gasped and sat up. He was lying on the ground. The cold night filled his lungs. Ada groaned beside him. "We made it." They were back in the forest, just outside the village. The spirits were gone, but something else caught Chinedu's attention. Just a few feet away, Ozioma stood frozen, holding the wooden bowl. Her eyes were wide with shock. She had seen everything. "Ozioma," Ada whispered. The little girl dropped the bowl. It hit the ground. The dark liquid spilled into dirt. A strong wind blew around the trees. A deep echoing whispers filled the air. "No more." Then, just like that, the dark liquid dried up. It disappeared into the earth, leaving nothing behind. The spirits were truly gone. Ozioma trembled. I thought they could help me. I thought if I gave them food, they would bring my mother back." Tears streamed down her face. Chinedu's heart ached for her. He walked towards her and gently placed a hand on her shoulder. "They lied to you, Ozioma, but you don't have to serve them anymore." Ozioma sniffled. "Are they really gone?" Ada nodded. "Yes, and they will never come back." The three of them stood in silence, staring at the empty bowl. Then Chinedu picked it up and smashed it against a rock. The bowl shattered. It was over. The next morning, the villagers rejoiced. The elders declared the spirit banished forever. The chief held a feast in honor of Chinedu and Ada. "You two have saved us again," he said proudly. Ozioma was taken in by kind villagers who promised to take care of her. She never spoke of the spirit again. And as for Chinedu and Ada, they never forgot that night, because deep inside they knew one truth: evil never truly dies. It only awaits for the next person to invite it over. The end.